Just a few housekeeping reminders before we get rolling. Right now, if you want to unmute yourself, share your video, that's fine. But once John and Lori get into their presentation, I'm going to ask that you turn off your video, turn off your sound so there's no distractions. But if at any point you have a question during this training, this is very casual. Turn on your video, unmute yourself, and ask away. This is the time to ask your questions. First, I'd like to welcome you guys and thank you for joining us this evening. We are very happy to be able to host the Rain Barrel Art Project again this year, and even more excited that we had over 130 entries. And they were great entries. The judges had a hard time picking that top 40. We do have a mix of new and returning artists, which is always great. So the barrels will be great. I know it. So my name is Sarah Fearing, and I'm with the Hamilton County Soil and Water Conservation District, and I'm the one behind all those emails you've been receiving so far. Hopefully you found them helpful and haven't been like, wow, she's a real pest. But you will be getting some more as we move through. So let's see, I'm going to share my screen here. So you guys have my email information already, but I did want to go ahead and throw out my cell phone number as well. Now, this is my personal cell phone, so please don't email me text me at midnight or 4 o'clock in the morning or anything crazy like that. But if you have questions during the pickup or rain barrel drop off, anything like that, feel free to call me, text me, whatever. I'll be there and I can help you. So let's go over some of the dates. Rain Barrel pickup is February 6th, which is Saturday, and that is from 10 to 12 at the zoo. You should have all received an email with information on how to get into the safari parking lot with that code. If you can't find that email, let me know and I can definitely resend it to you. After the 6th, you will have until March 26th to get that barrel painted. The Rain Barrel drop-off day you'll see in red, which is March 27th, 29th, and 30th. We are still confirming those dates with the zoo. In previous years, we've had them dropped off at the education building, but the education building is being a little more cautious, and they're still trying to limit the number of people that come in. So once I have a confirmation on those dates, I will get those out to you. And then the rain barrels will be on display at the zoo from April 1st to April 30th. And then the auction and artist reception, as John mentioned earlier, are still to be determined. Once we kind of see how things are going, we can make a decision to move forward with either of those. But any questions so far on timelines or dates or the process? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to John Nelson. If you've taken part in this workshop before, you'll know he's a familiar face. So John, go ahead and take it away.
Sarah, thank you. If you want to go ahead and hop off the presentation, I'll ask you to bring it up later, but I'd like to see everyone's faces as I'm doing the first part of my presentation. Yeah. So again, everyone, welcome back to the 2021 Rain Barrel Art Project. We are super excited to have you all on board again. And you're in very able hands this year. So I actually have taken a different role within the organization. Those of you who worked with me for the past 7 years of this Rain Barrel Art Project have known me. I've been your primary contact, but I'll be passing the baton off to Sarah, and Sarah will be taking most of the responsibilities for me, but you'll be seeing my face around still. I'll be still involved and helping out and doing what we need to do. But Sarah's going to be your main lead. She's going to be the one sending the annoying emails, not me any longer. But it'll be fun. It'll be exciting. It's different this year. Last year, we had to cope with a lot of different challenges, especially because we did the artist workshop in person, and that was literally the last thing that we ever did, because that was in February, and then in March the pandemic hit, and then we had to shut down everything. And then of course we were in absolute limbo all the way up till I believe June or July, when we actually finally had the auction. But the nice thing about it is that we got all the systems down last year, you know, what to do if we need to have this entire event digital. And of course, the biggest factor last year, of course, was the zoo not being open. So the zoo did not reopen to the public until I think June, which really put a damper in not being able to display the barrels. So we had the barrels you know, ready. A lot of the artists had completed painting their barrels, but we just couldn't bring the barrels back because the zoo was not open. And so the moment the zoo opened up, we were able to bring the barrels back, and then we were able to get them quickly displayed. So we're just happy that we're able to do it again, and we're super excited. And we're you know, a big hello to all of those folks that are joining us for the first time this year. And it's going to be exciting. And you know, this group is going to be a core group. They're going to help you out. You know, we'll hear from Lori here briefly. But you know, we all as artists kind of depend on each other, and we kind of email each other, you know, ask each other questions, and just have the ability to network and really get to know each other and such. So it's just an exciting process. So at this time, I'm just going to take a few minutes to explain to you why we do what we do, right? So I think Sarah introduced us being from the Soil and Water Conservation District. So you might wonder, so what do you guys have to do with rain barrels, or even painting a rain barrel for that matter of fact? And so that's what I'm going to talk to you about. So why a rain barrel, right? A rain barrel is just a perfect little tool to highlight some of the big environmental problems that we've got here in greater Cincinnati area, primarily being runoff. So, you know, before pre-development, this entire region had a lot of what we call in technical terms, impervious surface. So that sounds like a big word, but what is impervious surface? It's just surface that can absorb water, right? So if you see a forested land where there's lots of trees and rain hits the ground, rain basically has somewhere to go. It soaks into the soil. And of course, after a point in time, it reaches a saturation point and then it runs off. But under normal circumstances, your forest soils or any of your impervious surfaces have plenty of potential to hold water for a really long time. Now, how does that benefit the environment? Well, what that helps is it does not flood our creeks and streams, or it does not pick up any of the pollutants that are on the way to the stream and takes it into our stream. So it keeps our water clean. And all of us know we get our drinking water from the Ohio River. So we have a little bit of a vested interest in making sure our streams are clean, right? So now why a rain barrel, right? Yeah, the simple idea you think of a rain barrel saying, hey, a rain barrel is great because it helps you store water that you get from rain to water your lawn, so your water bill is cheap. Yes, that's great, and that's one of the solutions. But just slowing down and retaining water on your yard has an immense impact on the environment. You know, we talk about massive amounts of flooding here lately. You know, we here in Cincinnati, we've had so much flooding here lately. We have had 100-year rain events in multiple times in a year, or even in back-to-back years. So, you know, the world as we know it, the weather as we know it is changing, and we need to be resilient as a community to it. And individual people making changes within their own lifestyles, whether it being making sure your yards are properly aerated to soak in rainwater, putting in rain garden, or putting in a rain barrel, are simple solutions that you can help the environment. And that's what we're trying to promote, right? So we're putting art together with science and saying, hey, each one of us has the ability to change the environment, has the ability to contribute towards protecting the environment, to help protect the macroinvertebrates in our streams, and ultimately also impact you know, our oceans, because anything that gets put into the Ohio River, right, goes downstream and then ends up in the Gulf, right? So you want clean oceans when you go down to the Gulf, to Florida, when you go on vacations. Well, it starts here. It all starts upstream. So we all can contribute to clean water. And that's the whole crux of the Rainbow Art Project. It's taking the power and the imagination of art and blending it with science and community action and changing the future for our communities and for our country and for the nation and for the world itself. So with that little bit of a background, we'll jump into my presentation. Sarah, if you can want to bring in the presentation real quick. I promise you I won't bore you. It'll be about 5 to 6 minutes. Just go through a few slides on what is it that a rain barrel does, right? So rain barrels basically collect water from your downspouts, and then you can then use that at a later point of time in a dry weather to release that slowly to help improve your own yard, because you can then use it in dry conditions to water your lawn. You can connect more than one rain barrel, and there's calculations on how many rain barrels you need or how quickly your rain barrel will fill up depending on how much of your roof drains to that particular downspout. And it is very simple to install. It's something that every household can do. So we'll jump into a few benefits of having a rain barrel, right? So this is case in point, right? I talked to you about erosion and just a flooding of our stream banks. So on the picture on the bottom right, you see there, that's actually a stream bank that is heavily eroded because of flash flooding. Anytime we have a high rain event and we've got a lot of impervious surface, all of that water quickly rushes into a stream, erodes the stream bank, and eventually impacts homeowners. As you can see, that person's about to lose their balcony over there because it's about ready to fall into the stream. So, it not only has an environmental impact, it has a human impact as well, because, when streams are the flow and streams are altered because of the amount of impervious surface around, we see that impact there for sure. And then, of course, on the bottom left corner, you see that the flooding in the yards because of the compaction of the soil and things like that. Just by slowing down rain, by holding some rainwater on your property, helps tremendously. Thanks, Sarah. So the other part that I talked about was picking up pollutants, right, on your way. So we talk about non-point source pollution. So what's a non-point source pollution? It's the opposite of a point source pollution, right? So like there are certain pollutants that we can say, hey, that is coming from this particular building, right? This building is leaching out XYZ chemicals, and we need to put a treatment facility there to make sure that the water is somewhat cleaned out, or make sure that's connected to a water treatment plant. And then we can make sure that the water that's falling out back into our streams is somewhat cleaned up. There's no 100% cleaning up, but we can definitely manage that. But with non-point source pollution, there's no easy way to do that, because that comes off from pet waste, from excessive fertilizer on your lawn, from oversalting. This is perfect weather. We see people oversalting their driveways. In reality, all it takes is maybe a cup or 2 cups. I know it's a safety factor. You don't want anyone to slip and fall on ice, but there is an optimum level. You don't want to oversalt. So those are things that are non-point source pollution that can drastically change water chemistry in our streams, impacting our wildlife that live in our local streams. So as you can see, here are a few non-point source pollutants. Like one of the biggest pollutants is sediment. And now when you think of sediment, you think of soil, right? And you say, okay, John, how is soil even considered a pollutant, right? It's naturally occurring substance. Well, what happens with soil is that when everyone's been to the water when, when it's all brown and you kind of dip your head in the water, or you kind of try to take a dip and you can't see anything because the water is murky. That's the exact same, issue that happens when you have sedimentation, and this allows the sunlight from getting to the bottom of the stream, which basically then, does not give enough ability for the water biology to thrive, and then of course eventually leads to algae blooms and such. So it's also symbiotically connected. And then of course you have the more obvious ones like heavy metals, pesticides, fertilizers, automotive fluids, household chemicals, and pet waste, like I mentioned. So these are all non-point source pollutions, and just by having a rain barrel, those are some things that you can control. If every household in your neighborhood held about 50 gallons of water at every rain event, right, that would have a tremendous impact on your local stream. So then you can always conserve water and save money. That's something that I kind of mentioned earlier as well. And so, of course, there's the uses of what we can use it for. So the EPA actually highly discourages people from drinking rainwater that's collected off your roofs. And, as most of our roofs have shingles on them, and there's chemicals in the shingles. So, they and just the heat mixed with the water that might run off and what it might pick up on the way might not be best for human consumption or for pet consumption as well. So do not make Fido to drink water out of a rain barrel. Probably not the wisest decision, but you can definitely use it for lawn and garden watering, car washing, and window cleaning. There are some high-end commercial projects that have been put in where they use rainwater for flushing toilets. That's been experimented with, so there's lots of ways that rainwater can be used to reduce water consumption that comes in from your just regular water utility as well. I think that ends my presentation. Thank you, Sarah. So at this time, I kind of talked a little bit of the science, and Sarah talked to you about the process of the program itself, but we'd like to talk a little bit about the art, the more fun stuff, right? And for that, I have the best person to do it's my pleasure to do the introduction. Now, let me take a poll here. How many of you have seen this mural at the Cincinnati Zoo? It's made of bottle caps. It's by the train. Okay, I see some hands go up. Yeah, and the artist that is going to be talking to you today is the artist that made that mural, Lori. And that was my daughter in front of that mural. And Lori is Lori. Correct me if you're wrong. Your degree is in environmental studies, right? Environmental design.
I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Environmental Design.
Perfect. And Lori is also a long-term artist. She's also been an art teacher. And so she's got immense amount of experience just teaching art as well as an artist. She's painted multiple murals in the city of Hamilton. It's beautiful. I've seen pictures. I've seen it in person. I always, when I'm driving by those murals, I always point to my family and say, I know the artist that painted that mural. Lori has been involved with the Rain Barrel Art Project for over 5 years now.
I think this is my 6th year.
Yeah,
starting.
And so we're super excited. She's got tremendous experience in painting barrels. And I'll tell you, every year, her barrels are one of the best that end up coming. It's well finished, well made. And so last year was the first year we actually asked Lori to do these presentations for us, and we got great feedback. So Lori's back again. And I know this year it's a little different because we're doing it via Zoom, but I'll turn it over to Lori. Thank you, Lori, for agreeing to do this, and you've got the floor.
Okay. Thank you, John, very much. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to share this project with you all. If you've been a part of it in the past, I've enjoyed the whole process in it and the final result. if you've ever painted on plastic before, it can be a challenge if you haven't done it. So that's one of the biggest, I think, learning curves as a artist, is to how to prepare the rain barrels for this particular project. If I'm correct, last year, the barrels we received were from the Coca-Cola company. Am I correct on that, John?
Laurie, that's correct. Yes.
Okay. So they typically come in a clear color or white is what they came last year. Sometimes they've been blue and other colors, and we're not quite sure what colors they get. The only reason I make that note is that when you go to sand that barrel, it is very difficult to determine where you have started sanding it and where you have finished sanding it. The one that John gave me to do for this workshop happened to be a blue one, so it was a lot easier. So the beginning part is just basically preparing the barrel before you even get to the fun part of painting it. And that is an important step. I know that a lot of times we want to skip the prepping step when we're doing a project like this, but it is very important that we get the surface of the barrel in the best condition, because some of the barrels came with some stickers or residue from stickers, and they're not always the cleanest. Sometimes they had some residue on them. So it is good to take a good look at your barrel and inspect it to see if there's any loose stickers that can be pulled off. Wipe it down with a cloth too, maybe if there's dirt and residue on it. I did find out that I did not take this particular time, had some stickers on this one. The sanding part will really eliminate a lot of that sticker residue. So I did not bother with any solvent or any cleaner onto the sticker residue. But the best approach at going at the barrel is using a palm sander. If you ever have one or can rent one from the hardware store or have a friend that borrows it, this saved me a lot of time. It is a labor intensive project. I recommend, do you have the workshop page that you could pull up, Sarah, the first page of the tips, page 1, that you can all see, actually second page 2, I guess it's page 2. But in the preparing part, right there. In the sanding part, the grit that we use for the sandpaper, I usually about 80 to 120 grit. I have 100 there. The heavier the grit was better to get a tooth into the surface of the barrel. And again, like I said, you can see in the photo, the barrels last year were white. It is good to maybe do a mental note when you were in there sanding it as to where you started, as to where you finished, because it was really difficult to tell once I got around if I had sanded that area. So either, mark it with a little marker or put a little, some kind of line that you can either look at the top of where it starts and kind of work your way around in a process. It is important to wear a mask, and I recommend wearing gloves. And this process took me a good hour or so to kind of get a good sand on the barrel going all the way around. If you have somebody in your life that likes to sand, you can always volunteer that job off to them. I've done that in the past. Also, I use some sanding blocks on the top surface. So typically I don't bother with the bottom of the barrel since it's setting and getting moved around in the yard. It's not getting painted. So I did not bother with the sanding of that area. But if you go completely around, but some of the lipping and the little tops have some caps that come off. To have like a sanding sponge to get down in there, it is harder to get that 100% completely sanded. But if you can get enough of a roughed up surface on there, that is the goal on the barrel. And like I said, it after I got it completely sanded, I then took a damp towel and wiped everything down to get the residue off. And then I moved on to priming the barrel. And it is really important that we get a good prime on it to kind of seal over that surface. And what I found that works the best is this Kilz. I don't know if you can flip back to me, Sarah, or if they can see me too, or I can switch screen. It's a Kilz all-purpose. This is interior exterior paint, and it is water washable, but it is a good sealer and stain blocker and things like that. I put 3 coats on my barrels, just to get a nice, good, heavy, good coat going across it, and let them dry in between each coat. It's a nice, good priming step. And again, it just helps it also helps let the paint get be with a white base. So when you go to paint with your colors and shades, you're not having a barrel that's got a dark surface that you're trying to paint over and having to do different levels. Does anyone have any questions on the beginning part of either of those steps, of the sanding or the priming? I can't really see everybody. And then it gets to the fun part that we finally get to go to, transferring the design to the barrel. If you want to put it up on page 3, Sarah, for them to see. There's a couple ways to go in about the transferring. Sometimes depending on your design, if you just want to freehand and draw it out, that works great. You can grid it out and grid your things. I've often blown up elements of my design to scale and then drew in the backgrounds and stuff. And there's a sample of one that's drawn up in tape. Blue tape tends to be a little tricky on sticking on the barrel. So if you are doing any taped off lines in your pattern and want straight lines, you might need to investigate what kind of tape works the best, because of the plastic surface. It's a little tricky. The bottom note is on the bottom of the bottom photo in that with the blue barrel, there's 2 openings on the top of the barrel, but no holes on the side. So somebody, when they get this barrel, will have to install some openings as for the hose or release valve, because most of I believe they have a fitter that will go down in the top. So you might want to orient your design depending on where you think it's going to set against a house. So if you look at the top, the 2 openings at the top of the barrel are up across from each other. So generally I pick the best side that I think would be the front, and that opening that would be towards the house or the eavesdrop or the building or wherever it's placed, because at one point there's going to be a side that it's not going to be seen against. And again, I guess with your designs, I know we mentioned that some people have a lot of lettering maybe going across. You might be aware that, stand back and look at and trace it out and see if your lettering is wrapping completely around. It may be difficult to read it. So you might want to consider orienting it, because you're really only seeing about half the barrel at one time when you're viewing the image. So I tend to have a lot of my designs broken up into 2 or 3 sections. So if you were putting any wording, and also I guess it also depends on what kind of design you ended up with your final piece, for that matter, when you lay out your designs. But those are some of those things I think about when I'm laying out my patterns and designs, because the one in the picture there, obviously it had some holes already in it, and just kind of determining what the front is and the back is. And then on to page 4, actually come back to me if you don't mind. We get on to the painting, and a lot of people go, okay, this is the big question. What do you use to paint the barrels with them being plastic? What I have found, and I have tried different products, the best one that we have found has been this called mural paint. And it comes in these little boxes. I don't know if any of you have used this paint before. The only place I have seen it available is at Dick Blick Art Supplies, and you can order it online and they ship pretty quickly. Unless you have some friend that lives in Columbus, I think that is the closest store, and they do keep this on the stock in shelves in there. It comes in a pretty wide range of colors, but this has got a heavy body paint to it, and it seems to be one that you can mix and get a lot of different shades with and values, but it is definitely better than the little bottles of Aleene's or of the craft paint that you would see that's a thinner. This is a heavier based paint. It's got a thicker, heavy body to it. And I've also used some of these artist kind of loft kind of brands of paint that are the thicker, heavy body. They tend to hold up better with the whole process with the painting. Like I said, you can go to dickblick.com, I believe, and order those online, or I believe sometimes there's some links that I've seen through like Amazon and stuff on that. Any questions about the paint or anything? You guys got? Okay. Also, I tend to like to do a lot of black outlining on my designs. So I tend to even thin this down, and these thin real well with just water. There are some mediums that you can add to them to get a flow that's better or less. If you need a more blending workability, you can mix those in with these paints, and that works well on that. It typically takes me 2 to 3 coats to kind of get a good full coverage on the plastic barrels, because it tends to, I guess we always call them holidays. If you've ever done a mural painting, they said holidays are those where the paint breaks and doesn't want to stick. It always says the paint went on a holiday and didn't stick there. It was our little thing when we would paint our murals to fill in holidays, that if it breaks up on you, that's why the 2 or 3 coats help get a full coverage paint on those. And pretty much, have fun doing it, enjoy yourself. I mean, it was a good creative outlet, especially last year with all the pandemic going on and stuff, explore and stuff. But then the last thing I do after I get it all done, I usually go outside, and I usually is the last step, which is also important as the first step, is sealing the barrel, sealing it with a clear coat. I've tried different ones. This is one that works well, triple thick crystal clear glaze coat. And I tend to get the gloss versus any matte or any satin finish. Especially the satin finish tends to milky the colors, and they don't seem as bright. The gloss finish helps repel water. Since they are going to be outside, they tend to help and hold up a little bit better. And a lot of them, if you can get one with a UV protected, especially if you're using a lot of reds and oranges in your design, they tend to be ones that fade the quickest. And with obviously these being outside and in the sunlight, it helps hold the color longer. And sometimes it takes 2 to 3 coats, maybe a can or 2 per barrel, depending on how thick you spray it. And obviously you have to do that on a warm day with that. So there are a couple different other brands. I have it on the Thompson Water Seal Outdoor Exterior, and Krylon also does it. If you choose to do a design with your barrel, and some people like to use spray paint when they work, get one and make sure that you're reading that it is suitable to have a plastic substrate for you to be painting on, because some of the other ones don't stick very well. Make sure it's designed for plastics. And I do know that there are some brands out there, Krylon, that are dedicated to plastic spraying if you are going to spray paint any of your areas on your design. And I think that's pretty much covers everything. I usually let it set and cure a few days and then deliver it off. So if you're going to do your clear coat, just don't do it the day you're trying to deliver the barrel, because try to get it in your car and let it be cured and dried as you deliver it. Anyone have any questions?
I have some oil paints,
Mm-hmm.
like exterior outdoor oil paints. Would that be okay to do on the plastic?
I would believe that the oil paints would be okay as long as you get a good primer on the base. It should be
Okay.
well. And again, it's that priming and that sealing which really kind of holds your art, encasing it with the base and with the top coat seems to be best. And when you guys go and sand and go down, and I don't know if you can really see, but the get right up under the bottom edge of the barrel to the kind of, I know some people kind of has stopped halfway. If you can get that sanded and sealed down along that edge. So when I go to spray paint it and set it up, I kind of set it up on a bucket or something so the edge of the barrel overhangs, so that I can kind of get a good spray coat up under that bottom edge. That seems to be the one area where if it's going to fail or peel off or crack, it's because maybe moisture from the ground in the soil or the dirt that it's setting in can eat up underneath the edge. If you don't go and sand down the bottom edge and up underneath, that could be an area where you might have some issues with. But other than that, I think we've had a good success with everything. And again, I usually paint everything, including our tops and stuff. I don't know if you can kind of see if I bend this down. You can kind of see the top, bottom, and stuff. Some of them had caps too, up over the openings. I just got rid of the caps because obviously there's a lid that screws down, but some of the Coca-Cola ones had I think it said CC, and I don't know what that stood for. I don't know if it was what was in the barrel and they had some coating for that, or I don't know if it was Coca-Cola company. Maybe the CC stood for Coca-Cola. I don't know, but you can pull those. They were like almost cap covers. I didn't bother painting those. I just took them off because obviously when they're going to use it as a rain barrel, they're not going to need that on there. Anybody else? Yes.
Hi, Larry. Can I ask, did you say that we're going to be drilling and installing the hardware on it on some of them, or do we leave that for you all afterwards?
I believe John, they handle that, right?
So the purchaser gets a kit, so they'll be doing that. So you all don't have to worry about it, but just keep that in mind when picking a design. Remember that it has a front and a back. So
Terrific. Thank you, John. Hi.
Hi Claire, how are you doing?
Good, over yourself. Thanks.
Anybody else? Yes, Tiffany.
When you do it, Lori, do you do layers? Like, do you do your background layer or do you do it in blocks?
Good question. Most of the time I pencil draw out my designs, and I have found, for me, just my process as an artist working, I did most of the blue background first, and then I do a lot of blocking in of colors. And that way I can go back and kind of touch up areas where, like I said, where sometimes the paint holidays and breaks apart, and just, it's kind of good to have good lighting. And I tend to lift mine up a lot because it's just a pain to bend over on your knees to paint a barrel. I'm sorry. I'm too old for that. I just kind of lift up and build up little stacking things so I can spin the barrel around and kind of get it at my comfort eye level, which is easier for me to work with. And again, with this paint, it is a little bit heavier. You might want to invest in some medium, for some flow medium. If you like to do a lot of blending colors, like maybe with oil paint and stuff, you can use that to thin it down. These also are, water soluble, so you can thin them with water. And I tend to mix up. The one thing I suggest too, if you are blending or making a background color, like this aqua blue is not this color, I had to lighten it and add a little bit of other shades to it. Maybe mix up a batch into a container, like a little plastic container that you can put a lid on to save it, because I'll tell you, it's hard to try to rematch it. If you kind of get working through and you think you got everything and you throw that extra away, if you were doing it on a plate or something, and then you see a spot that might need touched up, or if you accidentally drop paint onto an area that you don't want it to be that color, it's nice to have a little bit of that extra that matches to touch up any background surfaces, so you don't have to it doesn't look like a patch or anything, because it can be a pain to do that. So I've always usually have some extra containers, mix them up with lids that I can set on them and come back with. And I do a lot, mine's a very whimsical type stuff. I do a lot of black outlining just to pop it. This is my preference, and I like to use a liner brush and thin it down, but it works well. And again, I said that with the ceiling, the gloss coats really pop it and make it shine, the clear coating on it. Anybody else?
One of the things, go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say, with the having to pick up the barrel and turn it, my husband found, and I'm trying to think where he found it, might have been at like Home Depot or Lowe's. It's like a Lazy Susan kind of thing. So if you buy a board and you put your rain barrel, like I do it on like a covered, shorter, like coffee table, cover the table, and I put that kind of spinner on it, put a board on top of that, put the barrel on top, and then the barrel just spins, and I don't have to walk around, and I don't have to lift it. So, because I sounds like a perfect tip. I love it. Learned that, yeah, work easier, not harder.
That's exactly right. Perfect. Someone else had a question?
The things I was going to tell you about the paint, what I found last year, which was my first year, was I have some old muffin tins that I would mix up the right colors into. But then I didn't have lids, so I just covered them with saran wrap and put them in the freezer,
Okay,
and that held fine.
good. Yep. Perfect. Anybody else? Questions? Well, I'm excited to see all your barrels. It's always fun when I go to drop them off and see all the beautiful barrels all lined up. It really is a stunning display to see them all together.
Yeah, and before I forgot earlier. So in one of my most recent emails, I included a link to a Facebook page.
Oh, yeah.
So all these things that you guys are mentioning, the Lazy Susan and the tin pans, share those ideas on that Facebook page so people that didn't get to watch this can enjoy those great ideas as well. They'll watch the recording too, but as they come along, just share those. That's what it's for. So I'm
Right.
gonna copy that link over in the chat box.
And if you have updates for us too, we'd love to see them. Sorry, Sarah, I didn't mean to cut
No.
you off there.
No, that's perfect.
But if you have updates as you're painting your barrels, we'd love to see them as well. Back to you, Sarah.
No, that is all I have.
I enjoyed that Facebook page. It was a great way to interact with everybody, to see where they were at, especially with the pandemic and everybody was at home. They're like, oh, it's a sunny day. I'm out sanding today, or I'm out painting. And sometimes I would post it like, this would be a good day to sand your barrel. Because I know right now with this cold rain and the bitter cold that's coming this coming week, I was very thankful to Sarah when she dropped off the barrel. It was like 60 degrees the very next day. I'm like, I'm out there sanding. Because I recommend if you do this in your garage, you will upset anybody that has to clean that garage because it leaves dust everywhere. So I suggest I bundled up and went outside with the sander long enough to get it done, and take a break if you need to as you're working and stuff. And always wear a good mask. I know it's hard to find the N95s, but it's good to have one of those on when you're doing the barrel sanding.
A couple of things that I wanted to talk about. The fun, let me give you a fun fact. The barrels from Coke last year smelled like Coca-Cola. So we had a bunch of artists saying that their garages smell like Coca-Cola for a few days. So if you like that smell, that'll be kind of cool to have in your garage for a few days. Also, I know that some artists have brought up, what about supplies? Can I get some help with supplies? So typically the way we've done it historically with the project, because every artist has a preference of what supplies they want to use, we let usually the artists provide the supplies. But there are few, especially I know there's people from outside of Hamilton County that are participating in this project, but for Hamilton County teachers, we have a grant program that's just not for the Rainbow Art Project. We take any kind of environmental education project within a classroom can apply for that grant, and we will fund that. So it has to be from a school. It doesn't matter private, public, doesn't matter what school, nature of school, but it has to be a Hamilton County school. Now for the individual artists, now I've had artists that have told me, say, hey, I went into Hobby Lobby and asked them for a donation of supplies, and they gave me some supplies. They'll usually call me and say, can you write me a letter on your district letterhead saying that this is legit, and I'll usually put the name of the artist, say that they're painting it for this, it's going to be displayed at the zoo and such. And usually, most local businesses, local art shops have donated material in the past for the project. So if you have a good relationship with a local art supply store and you would like to look at, request a donation, but you want a letter that says, hey, yeah, this is for a project, I'll be happy to write the letter, or Sarah will be happy to write those letters for you and send them over to you as well. So that's an option that's available as well. And if you're from outside of Hamilton County and a teacher, still reach out to me, and I'll try to reach out to some of the government agencies within your county and see if they have any money available to help you out. It's easy to for one government agency to help another school. It's hard to do it for an individual, but if you're part of an organization, it's kind of a little more easier to do it for sure. So, yeah.
And there's a PDF file for everything that we talked about in this handout that Sarah was showing up on the screen that you can download and print out if you have any questions on the tips. I don't, is it possible that we could maybe put that on the Facebook page or something
Yeah, for sure.
at all? That might be a good place to put it for those that do Facebook and want to just click on it and see it, because some of it has listing of where to get some of the paint that I got from Dick Blick. If anyone's in Hamilton, Butler County area and needs to borrow some of the mural paint, I'm willing to share some of mine. If I have, I don't have every color, but I have a good amount of the colors. It does go a long way. So if you love this project, as John and I have done this for numerous things, I invested in this a few years ago and I'm still working off some of the same colors. So it does go a good long distance. Or we actually did, I don't know if anybody with the rain barrels did the Northern Kentucky bourbon barrels. They recommend us using this paint too. And talk about smell. My garage smelled like a distillery when I was working on that one.
Lori, I have a question. Have you
Sure.
used that mural paint on brick by any chance?
I believe it is available for brick. When we obviously priming everything really well. This is similar paint that we've used in murals when we do the murals for, I've worked with Street Spark. It's kind of like Artworks mural project. Street Spark is a project in Hamilton that's been doing murals. And we use that, and the other brand that we've used is called Nova Paint. And I believe you have to order that online, and it's a mural paint. It is pricey, but they would get big buckets of gesso of it, the white mural paint, and they would mix up the colors because they would get the pure dyes, and the artist would kind of blend and mix the colors for the mural that we were using and stuff. But I believe if you prime the surface, this would be good. The big thing about this is the sealer, to put a good sealer on it, a UV sealer on top of it, and that helps hold it. And again, like I said, if you're using a lot of reds and oranges, if you could mix up with a little white and do like a primer coat, that really helps with full coverage with getting reds, which is one of the hardest cover. As you're an artist, know reds is one of the hardest ones. It seems like if you just paint it on, it's very translucent. So if you can mix a white base, like a pinky base first coat, that helps kind of when you put your second and third coats on to get your bright reds. But they always tend to be the ones that tend to want to fade the most, I've noticed, in bright sun. Anything else?
All right. Well, if nobody has any additional questions, we'll go ahead and end our workshop here. And we look forward to seeing everybody on Saturday from 10 to noon. And if you can't make that pickup day, just shoot me an email and I'll work something out to make sure you get your barrel.
Sarah, I had a quick note. Can we all give Lori a hand? Thank you, Lori, for the thing. I appreciate it. And
you.
I also went ahead and put Lori's Lori's artist Facebook page in the comment section as well. And I'm not an artist. You know, my limit for artistry ends at Photoshop. I can do nothing more. Usually I'm terrible with a brush and any paint. My wife will not even allow me paint our bedrooms. So yeah, that's how bad I am. But it's just fun to just follow Lori and all of her artwork, and also use the Facebook group to share some of your, if you're an artist and you have a page, Instagram page or Facebook page, feel free to share that. So the artists, so it's a small group of artists. We're only have 40 artists or 40 groups. So feel free to share your own designs and your own links to your Instagram or Facebook page. And that way you might end up getting a few new followers as well. So
absolutely. I love the connectivity of stuff. in a network. I teach at the Fitton Center for Creative Arts, and I teach mosaics mostly. So I'm usually breaking glass and gluing glass to things. I have done the Big Pig gig in the past, and I've done the most recent one was the Hero Bearcats that I did, a giant mosaic Bearcat that sat at Kenwood Town Center there for a while. And talk about heavy in a barrel and moving him around. He was a little heavy dude, but we have fun, and I'm getting ready to start a new project at the Fitton Center, which if you're interested, we are going to have some workshop dates available free. I am starting a community project where we are going to be asking artists or mosaic artists to create butterflies, and I have a certain guideline as to what size and what colors I need, and we're having them make them and send them to me, and then together I'm going to take all these butterflies and turn them into a mural on this column outside the Fitton Center. And so far I've got people from Australia, in Brazil, in Mexico, in the United Kingdom, and all over the US that said they're going to send stuff. So we're trying to get we're going to have a couple projects with the Fitton Center and promotions for that, where we're going to have some dates where you can kind of sign up, and if you want to stop in for a half an hour work session and make a little butterfly in memory. It's our response to the pandemic, trying to bring art people and artists together in connectivity, and just kind of the symbolization of a rebirth and hope and joy through a butterfly is what we're trying to do. So if there's somebody that you were touched deeply by through this pandemic and want to make a butterfly in their memory, it would be a good little project that we're doing. So that's coming about here in a couple weeks. We just got approval the other day and just started. And I do have if you follow my I'm under LKF Designs on Facebook. It's Lori K. Farr, which is my initials, and designs. And I do have share information in there. We did start a group called the Wings of Hope Mosaic Mural, and you're more than welcome to join us and follow along. And it will also post links to when we are meeting. And if you want to stop and sign up for a friend or sign up for a half an hour, and you don't have to know how to cut glass or anything, we'll have a lot of tiles that you can work from. But it's a fun little project to engage in. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Laurie.
Sarah, I do have a question. Last year, when the barrels were auctioned, it would have been interesting to know where our personal barrels ended up. Is that like private information we will never know? Because it would be neat to go drive by that person's house and see how they've displayed it.
Eileen, we should have a database of that. We'll try to dig it up. It's typically what we've done is there have been we've made some connections where there have been artists and families that purchased the barrel, become friends, and vacation together after that. So it's been done before. So yeah, we can definitely, if we can look it up and send it over to you for sure. And one of the things that I'm thinking of this year is maybe also even create like a digital map, perhaps, which doesn't maybe specify the exact address of the person that bought it, but at least like maybe the city where it ended up, your barrel. So that would kind of, just do a Google map where you can click on the barrel and it says your barrel ended up in Blue Ash, or, and such. It's funny because every year I get a request either from Texas or Arizona saying, hey, can you ship these barrels out to us? We love the barrel. We'd like to bid on it. Can you ship it? And unfortunately, they're like, can you drive to Cincinnati and pick it up? So
I've never thought to ask where mine went. It's a good idea.
I just want to know who outbid me.
They get vicious at the end.
Maybe we shouldn't tell her where her barrel went.
No, I'm not going to go steal it.
Yeah, we use eBay as a platform for bidding because it works so well. We've used it last year. We've gotten some feedback on it, and we might try to make some improvements and tweaks on it. A lot of people get frustrated because a lot of the good eBayers have the little tricks, right? Where they put in the last moment bid, they wait till the last 15 seconds and push through a bid. And so some people get outbid and get very upset about it. But, It's unfortunate, but we've tried different platforms. We've tried Bid for Good, which is another platform that's mainly focused towards nonprofit work, but they just don't have the flexibility that eBay has. So we might even kind of go back to the drawing board and see what's available out there for sure.
I know Artworks for their fundraiser, they did everything but the house. I think that's what they called.
Oh yeah.
So that might be interesting to
Oh, thanks, Wes. We'll
look at that. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry,
Any
I'm
other
taking
questions?
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us this evening. Like I said, I'll get this stuck on our YouTube page hopefully tomorrow, and then we'll see you guys all on Saturday at the zoo.
All right.
Perfect.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.